Pokemon, gotta get some on with me. I know it's my destiny. Pokemon, oh, you're my best friend. In a world we must defend.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Dragon Guide. Welcome back to a brand new video, and this is part 14 of what if Ash fully evolved his Pokemon, and it's about to get really interesting. So let's start with the video now. With the Pokemon League 1.5 weeks away, our heroes have decided to take a day of training as they are watching Bruno of the Elite Four on TV. As then, just like the canon, Dahlia tells Ash about Bruno's secret training spot at Mount Hideaway. And our heroes then rush for it to find and train with Bruno as Ash chooses to pick the team of Pikachu, Blastoise, Nidorina, Charizard, Venusaur and Primeape. As then, like the canon, after some traveling, our heroes bump into Bruno after escaping the wild Onix and somehow convince him to train Ash. But unlike the anime, he would train Ash seriously by battling him, only if Ash and gang help him catch the biggest Onix they can find. Then, after an hour of searching, our heroes find Team Rocket trying to catch the Onix, only for the Onix to totally overpower them and blast them off, as Ash then decides to send out Blastoise to battle the Onix as Bruno overlooks this battle. Brock and Misty offer to help but are asked by Ash to be on standby with their Pokemon in case he fails, as he calls for a Bubble Beam, which is super effective as Onix goes for a dig, which then asks Blastoise to spray the whole ground with ice, as Onix does end up coming out of the ground and hitting Blastoise but finds the ground too slippery to be able to comfortably land on. Now, Ash then calls for a Steel Cannon, which is a direct hit, as Onix goes for an Iron Tail. Ash asks for Blastoise to get in its shell and slide over the ice, as Blastoise dodges the attack and Onix slips again. Ash then calls for a Bubble Beam again, followed by an Ice Beam, which freezes Onix to a spot, as Ash decides to finish off Onix with a Bubble Beam and then allows Bruno to capture the Onix. Bruno is very impressed by Ash's battle tactics and his bond with Blastoise and decides to take him up for a battle, and also states that if Ash wins the battle, he will award Ash a very strong fighting type training machine. As Bruno announces, it would be a 3-on-3 battle, sending out Hitmonchan, as Ash sends out Charizard, calling that flying type moves are good against fighting type Pokemon, as Bruno calls for a Thunder Punch, which is super effective, as Ash calls for a Flamethrower, which Bruno calls for a dodge and Hitmonchan dodges easily. Ash then calls for Charizard to fly around Hitmonchan to get out of its reach and then launch an Air Slash, which lands. Bruno then calls for Hitmonchan to jump and land another Thunder Punch, as Ash calls for Charizard to do something totally reckless. He asks Charizard to catch the punch and take Hitmonchan with him to the sky, as Charizard does catch the Thunder Punch, taking a lot of damage, and then tosses Hitmonchan to the ground with a seismic toss from the height, as Hitmonchan then hits the ground super hard as dust surrounds everyone, and when the dust settles, we see both Pokemon barely standing, as Ash then calls for another Flamethrower, but this time not aimed for Hitmonchan but for the ground, as the heated ground disbalances Hitmonchan's upcoming Ice Punch, as Ash then asks Charizard to land an Air Slash, which finishes off Hitmonchan finally, impressing Bruno as he sends out Hitmonlee, as Ash recalls Charizard and sends out Primeape and calls for a continuous flurry of close combats, as Bruno calls for multiple Mega Kicks as both the Pokemon are dishing out damage to each other, and suddenly Ash asks Primeape to use Counter and tank one of Hitmonlee's jump kicks and dish double the damage back, just pointed towards one of Hitmonlee's knees, and Primeape follows the instructions really well, damaging one of Hitmonlee's legs. Now, with one of Hitmonlee's legs really hurt, Bruno decides to use a high jump kick, as Ash, thinking he would be safe underground, asks Primeape to use Dig. As the jump kick misses, Bruno now asks Hitmonlee to finish the fight with the jump kick again, as Ash calls for close combat as both moves clash and both the Pokemon are knocked out at the same time, as Bruno now really impressed with Ash, especially Primeape's hit-taking capacity, sends out Onix, the same Onix that Ash had helped him catch. Now, Ash in his overconfidence sends out Blastoise again, only for Blastoise to be totally decimated by Onix, who under Bruno's guidance is like a whole different beast, impressing Brock, who is standing on the sidelines and watching all this. Ash is also very impressed. Blastoise is barely left standing after being hit by consecutive stone edges as Bruno calls for a slam to finish it off, and Ash calls for Blastoise to hide in its shell as the slam lands and Blastoise barely manages to dodge, as Ash then calls for Blastoise to spin in the shell and use Bubble Beam in all directions like always, as Bruno calls for Dig, as Ash then calls for a Flash Cannon on the ground, forcing Onix out as Ash decides to go in with one final Flash Cannon against Onix's Stone Edge, which is coming his way as Blastoise is defeated, shocking Ash. Bruno, after this victory, goes on to explain to Ash that just catching a strong Pokemon is not enough, and just because he defeated someone prior, one should not believe that they can win easily in a rematch, that underestimating one's opponent will only lead to one's downfall, as Ash acknowledges his mistake and sends out Charizard, who is heavily damaged from his previous battle, and Onix also has taken slight damage from his battle against Blastoise but is in a comparative much better shape than Charizard, as Bruno tells Ash that he will finish it off with one move. Ash tells Charizard that it is now or never, that they surpass their own limits and trust each other completely. Ash shouts Charizard's name as Bruno calls for a Stone Edge to finish off Charizard. Ash calls for a Dragon Claw that shatters through the Stone Edge and lands a critical hit as Charizard stands up against Onix, impressing Bruno further. Now, not ready to go down just yet, Bruno asks for a Dig as Ash asks Charizard to overheat the ground with Flamethrower once again, forcing Onix to come out, as Ash then calls for Charizard to use Flamethrower on Onix's body while it flies. Onix is unable to land a slam on the flying Charizard as the flamethrowers force it to heat up and also give it a lot of damage. Both trainers decide to go all out for one last attack. Bruno calls for a Stone Edge as Ash calls for another Dragon Claw. As both the Pokemon clash and the dust cloud finally settles, we see Charizard fainted on the ground as Onix stands tall, still winning, which impresses Bruno, who, even though the battle was won by him, announces Ash to be the winner due to his amazing bond with his Pokemon, and especially Charizard and Primeape's spirit, as Ash recalls Charizard and thanks Bruno for the amazing battle and teaching him a lot, as Bruno hands over to Ash the TM for a very strong fighting type move as he had promised, Focus Punch. The trainers spend the night camping with Bruno, hearing from him stories of a mysterious trainer who once, just like Ash, had battled him with a Charizard, which was very strong too. But the difference being that this trainer had actually defeated Bruno, and that too in an official league match, and had gone on to become the champion of Kanto, but had not been seen for a few years and no one had any information about him. As our heroes thank Bruno and leave for Pallet Town in the morning, after him giving Ash a few tips for the Pokemon battles that he is going to face against fighting type Pokemon specifically. Bruno makes Ash promise to him that he will meet him in the Pokemon League for a rematch, where Bruno will be able to go all out against Ash, who will also be able to go all out in a 6-on-6 battle. Now, back from Mount Hideaway, 1 week is left till the Pokemon League inauguration. Ash has spent the last 3 weeks training excessively with each of his Pokemon, be it through the training with Bruno or the tag team tournament with Brock or the adventure at New Island with Mewtwo. As all these events have gone by, Krabby has managed to evolve into a Kingler due to its constant battling with Scyther. Ash also has worked on the movesets of all his Pokemon, diversifying them to the best of his capabilities with the help of Brock and Misty. And the movesets now look like this. Pikachu knows Thunderbolt, Iron Tail, Dig and Quick Attack and has gotten quite strong due to the constant training drills and battles against Ash's Taurus and Aerodactyl. Charizard knows Flamethrower, Dragon Claw, Seismic Toss and Air Slash. Blastoise knows Bubble Beam, Flash Cannon, Ice Beam and has learned Focus Punch from the TM that he recently received. Venusaur knows Solar Beam, Petal Blizzard, Sludge Bomb and Takedown. Pidgeot knows Steel Wing, Aerial Ace, Hyper Beam and Agility. Primeape knows Counter, Hyper Beam, Claws Combat and Dig. Butterfree knows Bug Buzz, Air Slash, Psychic and Solar Beam. Beedrill knows Poison Jab, Aerial Ace, X-Scissor and Hyper Beam. Scyther knows Night Slash, Bug Buzz, Air Slash, and Close Combat. Aerodactyl knows Iron Head, Crunch, Stone Edge, and Wing Attack. Nidorina knows Crunch, Ice Beam, Sludge Bomb, and Thunderbolt, whereas Kingler knows Hammer Arm, Razor Shell, Dig, and X Scissor. Alakazam knows Psychic, Focus Punch, Teleport, and Future Sight. Tauros knows Zen Headbutt, Raging Bull, Stone Edge, and Wild Charge. Mach knows Gunk Shot, Hyper Beam, Shadow Punch, and Mud Shot. Ash then goes on to train with Charizard, Aerodactyl, Scyther, Venusaur, and Blastoise and Pikachu for the next 3 days specifically, giving rest to his other mons, and then has 2 full rest days with now 2 days to go till the start of Indigo League. Now with the training all set and done and getting ready to leave for the Indigo Plateau, Professor Oak advises to Ash to evolve Nidorina, as he displayed why that should be the case after Nidorina loses to Professor Oak's Nidoking in a sparring match. As Oak suggests to unlock Nidorina's full potential, Ash should evolve her, as this would allow her to dish more damage and take more damage on her end. Now, this puts Ash in a deep thought that would him evolving his Pokemon for the sake of strength put him in the same bracket as Lieutenant Surge and the Eevee brothers? As Oak then comes and tells Ash that sometimes a trainer's stubbornness to stick to one's philosophy can limit their Pokemon's growth, and in cases such as this, the trainer should look at their Pokemon's feelings directly. Now, Ash sits down with Nidorina, asking if she wants to evolve, but before Nidorina could answer, Ash gets teary, and so does Venusaur, who comes out of his Pokeball, as they think back to how she had hatched out as a tiny Nidoran, and that maybe Ash is afraid to evolve her because he always wants her to be his little baby Pokemon. This is when Nidorina licks Ash's face just the way she had when she had hatched, and tells Ash that she will always be Ash's little baby Pokemon even if she evolved, because he would be the one who would have raised her. She even goes on to lick Venusaur's face, thanking him for protecting it all throughout this time, and then points to the Moonstone in Ash's hand, rejecting it as it wants to prove to itself and Ash and Venusaur like Ash's other strong Pokemon have, before choosing to evolve, as a loss to Nidoking and the training the last week or so and losing to most of Ash's strong fully evolved Pokemons has humbled her and fixed her overconfidence issue. As this decision shocks everyone, but Ash hugs Nidorina and promises to help her become super strong before she decides for herself when it's the right time for her to evolve. As Ash is all set to leave, Oak decides to click a picture of Ash with all his Pokemon, asking him which ones he's taking for the journey to the Indigo League. Ash says and announces to all his Pokemon that he will be counting on each of them directly or indirectly during the competition, as each of them have played an important part in the training of others and themselves. Ash asks all the Pokemon to hug him before he leaves, only to end up being stormed by the Tauros. With the group hug done and the spirits of everyone in Camp Ash Ketchum high, Ash leaves with Brock, Misty, and Pikachu for the Indigo Plateau with a team of Pikachu, Charizard, Venusaur, Blastoise, Aerodactyl, and Scyther, as, like the canon, our heroes manage to reach Indigo Plateau on time. Now, even so the canon follow as Ash meets up with all his friends he had made along the journey, like Gary, AJ, Asunta, Joe, Giselle, and many other trainers present at the Pokemon League inauguration. Now, like the canon, he also witnesses the legendary bird Moltres, who defeats Team Rocket as Ash approaches to battle it with Aerodactyl and Blastoise with the Stone Edge and Bubble Beam respectively. But Moltres overheats the surroundings, absorbing the moisture from everything and everyone, making the two Pokemon faint at the spot out of the lack of water, thus defeating Ash instantly, making Ash realize that there is so much room for him to still grow when it comes to his skill and strength. This is done as Moltres flies away after lighting the torch for the inauguration of the Pokemon League. Now, like the canon, after registering for the Indigo Plateau conference, Ash learns that he must first pass through 4 preliminary battles on 4 unique battlefields: grass, water, ice, and rock, to qualify for battling inside the Indigo Stadium. With his first battle on the water ground against a trainer called Mandy, who uses Executor, as Ash decides to use Scyther, who can fly around the field for added mobility. Ash decides to start with Bug Buzz, which is super effective, and then dodges an incoming Egg Bomb as Ash calls for an Air Slash, which finishes off Executor instantly. Mendy then sends out Seadra as Ash swaps Scyther for Pikachu without realizing that this retired Scyther from further battling in this round and calls for a Thunderbolt, which Seadra dodges as Ash then calls for Pikachu to electrocute the water with Thunderbolt, and it works as Seadra is forced out of the water as Pikachu finishes it off with a few quick attacks, taking a few water guns to the face but pulling off the victory. Mendy then sends out Golbat as Ash this time does not switch as he wants to utilize the electric type advantage that he has and win. Golbat causes some nuisance to Ash, but Ash, after taking a few aerial aces, asks Pikachu to break the platform it is standing on with Iron Tail and hit all the broken fragments at Golbat, which confuses Golbat which rocks to dodge, as Ash then asks Pikachu to use Quick Attack by using those rocks as a stepping stone, hitting Golbat with the Iron Tail and sending him in the electrocuted water, winning Ash the match as he celebrates with Brock and Misty and Pikachu and Scyther. Now, like the canon, Ash then further goes on to win his second prelim battle on the rock field with just Blastoise and gets criticized by Gary and his Blastoise, being called out by them to have easy battles as the events of the canon follow as Team Rocket open a fake Pokemon Center only for Misty to save Ash and his Pokemon, and Brock, unlike the canon, helps heal Blastoise, Pikachu and Scyther with his potions and his skills due to the crowded Pokemon Center, as Ash then, like the canon, battles with Pete, who Brock claims is from the Pewter City, on the ice field, as Ash, to escape the slippery ice field, decides to use Aerodactyl against Cloyster, as Ash instructs Aerodactyl to dodge multiple ice beams his way in the sky to land 2 stone edges on Cloyster, who then uses Hydro Pump, who Ash asks Aerodactyl to tank and counter it with a wing attack, winning it the battle, as Aerodactyl then manages to defeat Pete, his second Pokemon, a Butterfree, very easily too. Ash then decides to switch it against Pete's Arcanine, this time knowingly get it some rest, and sends out Blastoise and asks it to get on its shell and slide over the ice to dodge Arcanine's long range attacks like Fire Blast and Flamethrower as much as possible. Arcanine tires out and the ice around him starts to melt due to the heated attacks. Ash uses this opportunity to launch a Bubble Beam and follow it up by freezing Arcanine's feet to the ground with Ice Beam, and then when Pete is distracted by asking Arcanine to get out of the ice by using a Flamethrower, Blastoise is instructed to land a Focus Punch, finishing Arcanine off in one go, as Ash wins and celebrates his third victory with his Pokemon and his friend. Now, unlike the canon, Gary in our series will defeat Melissa and progress to the round of 16, making Ash even more motivated to battle him in the later stages of the tournament, as Ash in his 4th round on the grass field one-shots Jeanette's team with just Charizard defeating her Beedrill, Scyther and Bellsprout with moves like Air Slash and Flamethrower. As we all see Ash's friends from his journey and a few other trainers qualifying for the round of 16 too. Gary, AJ, Giselle, Asunta are all through to the round of 16 with him and some other trainers. Now Ash bumps into Richie and the events of the episode go as planned. Ash's 5th round matchup is announced to be Richie, as Team Rocket do manage to get Aerodactyl instead of Pidgeot in this timeline to be tired out, and Ash arrives late to the Pokemon match, as the matchup rules for this stage of the tournament are announced to be a 3-on-3 battle with no Pokemon switching. Now, Richie sends out Butterfree as Ash decides to send out Charizard, who easily defeats Butterfree with Air Slash and Flamethrower, overpowering it, as she then sends out his Pikachu called Sparky. Seeing this, Ash asks Charizard to not get close to Sparky and land a Dragon Claw multiple times as Charizard is hit with a Thunderbolt, as Ash asks Charizard to bear it and get a hold of Sparky, as Charizard manages to catch it, and Richie asks for continuous Thunderbolts as Ash asks Charizard to take it up to the sky and use Seismic Toss, finishing it off. Now, Charizard is slightly weakened because it had just received so many electric attacks directly. Now, Richie sends out his Charmeleon as Charizard, even though weakened, totally overpowers Richie's Charmeleon when it comes to strength, speed, fire attacks and everything. Ash easily wins this round, and just with his one Pokemon, Charizard, as he wishes his best to Richie, who is upset and moves on in his journey after some words of affirmation by Ash. it is also announced that Gary, Asunta, AJ, Giselle, Joe, along with Ash and two trainers called Josh and Jake have made it to the 6th round. And from 6th round onwards, we will see full 6-on-6 battles taking place, as the matchups for the next rounds are announced to be Gary versus Jake, Asunta versus Josh, Giselle versus AJ, Ash versus Joe. Now, with the matchups announced to be held tomorrow, this is where we end part 14. That's all for part 14, guys. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing ride. We're down to the last two parts of this series, the Indigo season at least, and then we'll be starting with the Orange Islands and the Johto part of the adventure that Ash has. And I really wanted to thank you guys for the constant support you guys have shown. You're subscribing to the channel, you're liking the videos, you're commenting on them, you're definitely sharing them, and it means a lot to me. Just keep with the support up, and we'll definitely take this series to the heights it can reach in the Johto region, in the Orange Islands, and we're definitely going to do it. And till then, keep an eye out for part 15. It will be coming out in a few days, like maybe 3, if not 4 or 5 days. And I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace, Dragon.